Tonight, restrictions ease on the New South Wales-Victoria border. Gladys Berejiklian announces changes to the border permit system in a bid to make it easier for locals to go about their daily lives. This coming as cases decrease right across Victoria. Plus, Australia officially enters a recession as the federal government announces a cut to JobKeeper payments. Also tonight, Facebook threatens to ban all Australian news content on its platform as the war between big tech companies and the major media organisation continues. Donald Trump visits Kenosha after days of violence, despite pleas from some for him to stay away as the race for the US election heats up. And reports come out suggesting that Kim Jong-un's sister has gone missing only days after she was labelled the next leader of North Korea. 6 News starts now. Good evening. Gladys Berejiklian has blamed a lack of transparency about COVID-19 testing and community transmission for a delay in the relaxation of restrictions on the New South Wales-Victoria border. One Albury motel owner says she's lost more than half her sales since the border was slammed shut. It came as the New South Wales Premier visited the town with some good news, and it's hoped that the rest of Victoria will soon be allowed to travel interstate as Daniel Andrews announces a plan to get Melbourne out of stage 4 lockdown. Mitchell Sariovsky begins our coverage.
8 weeks after the New South Wales-Victoria border was slammed shut, Premier Gladys Berejiklian arrives in Albury with good news.
From this Friday, the border community, the border region, will be extended to that initial 50 kilometres on either side of the border,
giving locals a little more freedom.
As soon as we feel the risk is low or negligible to New South Wales, we're keen to re-establish our connections.
But some business owners think it's too little, too late.
I think it was a waste of money. It was unnecessary because, as you say, we all knew it was what was going to happen.
Albury motel owner Tiffany Jasko says bookings have halved since the pandemic began.
70%. We barely get anybody.
The closure of the border costing the New South Wales government tens of millions of dollars. Albury-Wodonga currently has no active cases of coronavirus. Mitchell Sariovsky, 6 News.
Australia is officially in a recession for the first time in 3 decades following more economic turmoil caused by the coronavirus pandemic. June quarter GDP numbers showed the economy went backwards by 7%, the worst fall on record and slightly worse than what most economists had predicted. It is the first time this has happened since 1991, but the federal government has been questioned by the shadow treasurer over whether their recent decision to cut JobKeeper payments from $1,500 a fortnight may make that recession even deeper and last longer. Now, from September 28, the payment will fall to $1,200 a fortnight, following a further drop at the beginning of January 2021 to $1,000. Facebook has been accused of bullying Australians after threatening to ban all news content on its platform. This is in response to a new law which would force big tech companies, including Facebook, to pay news outlets for their content. The company's former Australian CEO says this warning from the social media giant is a threat to all Australians and citizens. Last month, Google, another company which would be affected by the law, warned users that its search services could be dramatically worse as a result. This all comes as the media industry continues to face cuts due to the pandemic. This week, several reporters and presenters at the ABC left amid more cuts at the national broadcaster. An Australian journalist has been detained in Beijing, adding another challenge to Australia-China tensions. Cheng Lei is an anchor for the state-owned network CGNT, the English-language channel of China's Central Television. Chinese authorities notified the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs that she had been arrested on August 14. It comes amid escalating tensions between the two nations, with one comment in a Chinese state-run newspaper saying that Australia is at risk of becoming the poor white trash of Asia. The link between climate change and the unprecedented 2019-2020 bushfire season has now been backed up at a federal level. It came as newly released images showed the devastation of the Black Summer bushfires, with this year's bushfire season now officially underway. Lincoln Holmes has more.
For just over a week, hundreds have given evidence into the inquiry about our bushfire season at the end of 2019 and the start of 2020.
Our climate is changing, and those who wrote the report actually acknowledge that.
The bushfires took 34 lives so quickly from the world, including 3 pilots from the US. The inquiry will investigate all of the bushfires that happened right around Australia at the end of 2019 and the start of the 2020 bushfire season.
Holy shit.
The inquiry will investigate what went wrong in the battling of the bushfires at Mallacoota and all the bushfires in New South Wales, which raged across Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland.
Everything that we do with these 76 recommendations will be focused on protecting life and property.
This inquiry is so important because scientists say that Australia is set to have possibly the same or even worse bushfire conditions in the coming years.
It does look like they've listened to a lot of what captains and so on were saying. That failed us during that last fire season.
Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Overseas now, Donald Trump has visited the city of Kenosha, the scene of riots following the police shooting of Jacob Blake. He was there despite calls from some for him not to come, with the Portland mayor telling the US president to stay away from his city. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the latest details.
Leo, unrest continues in America following a police encounter with Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The president did visit that city to survey some of the damage left behind by protesters, but local officials did not want him to be there. They said it would cause more violence. Now, this is a talk of the campaign trail because some say that President Trump just used this as a campaign stop. And the Biden campaign says that President Trump's America is violent, and that's why he wants to get in office. President Trump argues that Joe Biden is mentally incompetent. He calls him Sleepy Joe as a nickname. Now, this has sparked a lot of controversy among American voters because many are not knowing who to vote for coming up. They tell me that it's a very difficult situation because on the one hand, you have a president who speaks out about everything and tweets countless times a day, while on the other hand, you have someone who can't finish his sentences appropriately and fill in the blanks without using a teleprompter. So it's going to be a very interesting election. I will continue to follow it and bring you up to date across all of our 6 News platforms. I'm reporting in the U.S., Jackson Gosnell, 6 News.
Staying in the US, Donald Trump has denied allegations that he called Americans who have died at war losers and suckers. An article in The Atlantic detailed a conversation Mr. Trump allegedly had with senior staff members on the morning of a scheduled visit to a cemetery where he allegedly said, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." In a separate conversation on the same day, sources say that Mr. Trump referred to the more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives there as suckers for getting killed. The US president has denied the allegations.
It was a fake story written by a magazine that was probably not going to be around much longer, but it was a totally fake story, and that was confirmed by many people who were actually there. It was a terrible thing that somebody could say the kind of things, and especially to me, because I've done more for the military than almost anybody else.
Presidential rival Joe Biden has since denounced Trump over the allegations, saying that if what was said was indeed true, the statements were disgusting, and he says that it affirms what most of us believe to be true, that he is not fit to be the Commander-in-Chief. Former PM Tony Abbott has been officially appointed to Britain's Board of Trade with the backing of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. It came after heavy criticism from some who labelled Mr Abbott a climate change denier, misogynist and homophobe.
What I would say about Tony Abbott is this is a guy who was elected by the people of the great liberal democratic nation of Australia. And you've been to Australia. It's an amazing country. It's a freedom-loving country. It's a liberal country. There you go. I think that speaks for itself.
This also came after he was accused of a new low after suggesting that some elderly coronavirus victims should be left to die naturally. His new unpaid role with the British government will involve promoting the UK's trade interests and post-Brexit talks with other countries. Back home now, 2 Richmond players have been suspended for 10 games and sent back to Victoria after breaching restrictions in their Gold Coast hub. Sydney Stack and Callum Coleman-Jones were involved in a late-night fight just before 3:30am after being thrown out of a strip club and then buying kebabs next door. CCTV footage shows another man appeared to approach Coleman-Jones before allegedly striking him in the face. The pair were later arrested. It's believed that Stack's credit card was initially declined before he put in a second kebab order after his first was ruined in the scuffle. The players have been sent home and the club fined $100,000, making it the Tigers' second COVID-19 breach of the season. The Queensland Premier says the AFL takes these issues seriously. Richmond CEO Brendan Gale says the actions that the 2 players made were serious mistakes that he says put the club and the AFL community at risk. Dozens of people have been arrested at an anti-mask protest at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne. Thousands of people attended the event chanting freedom and calling for Premier Daniel Andrews to resign. Following those confrontations, the group began to block traffic in the CBD. People had earlier been warned to expect a heavy police presence if they did indeed attend the so-called Freedom Day protest. A number of people told Channel 9 they did not attend after a crackdown in recent days on conspiracy theorists. What we told you last week about Kim Jong-un's sister, who's been tipped to be the next leader of North Korea. But this week reports have emerged that she has now disappeared and fallen out of favour with her brother. One defector from the so-called Hermit Kingdom told the Express that the dictator will kill anyone that he sees as a potential threat. You may recall he allegedly signed off on the assassination of his half-brother Kim Jong-nam, who was the eldest son of deceased leader Kim Jong-il. This all comes as North Korea is hit by floods after a typhoon made landfall on southern parts of the Korean peninsula. Alright, we're going to take a quick break now. Coming up next on 6 News, we'll have the latest in entertainment as Channel 7 steals The Voice from Channel 9, and in a historic move, the AFL Grand Final set to be played at night in Brisbane this year. Stay with us.
Has been one of the biggest years in our lifetime. Calls for police reform across the country, a global pandemic that has changed the way we live, and the upcoming election that will shape America. As the U.S. gets ready to decide who will lead the country for the next 4 years, we'll keep you informed with all the latest developments in the race for the presidency. Special coverage and expert analysis only on 6 News.
That story went round on late Saturday afternoon. It was broken on that website 6 News.
He's only 12 years old, but already Leonardo Puglisi fronts his own news channel.
That is incredible. Absolutely inspiring.
Leo's fantastic. He's doing an amazing job. He's everywhere. He's breaking stories.
That's pretty impressive, Leo. Leave it there for now. We do. I might see him doing a bit more stuff on camera before too long.
Very good at what you do, young man.
What an amazing guy.
This is your studio here. It's a pretty sweet setup you've got.
We're following your story. We're rooting for you.
He will be the next Karl Stefanovic. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, lovely to see you. And go hard.
Welcome back. In entertainment, Channel 7 has managed to steal the highly successful program The Voice after Nine failed to renew its contract for the program. TV Tonight reports that the show will be hosted by Sonia Kruger, a former Nine host, when it comes to the 7 network next year. It's not the first time that 7 has managed to grab a show from 9. Big Brother, Farmer Wants a Wife and the Test cricket coverage all originated from the Nine Network. In other entertainment news, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has revealed that he is recovering from coronavirus after testing positive alongside his wife and his 2 daughters. In a video posted to his Instagram account, the 48-year-old actor described the experience as terrifying. And there have been more calls this week to boycott Disney's film Mulan after the main actor of the film showed support for the Hong Kong police amid more tensions due to China's new national security law, with some even calling for the film to be banned. What are your thoughts on this? Have your say on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram by using hashtag 6NewsAU. In a move that's devastated some Victorians, the AFL have announced that this year's grand final will be played at the Gabba in Brisbane. And in another historic move, the league's CEO Gillon McLachlan have announced that the game will be played at night. Darby Travers has the details.
It is my pleasure to formally announce that the 2020 Toyota AFL Grand Final will be played in Queensland at the Gabba.
Well, after months of speculation, the AFL have confirmed the location for the 2020 AFL Grand Final. The league CEO Gillon McLachlan addressed the historic announcement at the Gold Coast Hub on Wednesday afternoon.
The COVID pandemic has meant we've had to take the game interstate.
He announced that the big game will take place at the Gabba in Brisbane on October 24th and will be held in the evening, which follows on from another big sporting event, the Ladbrokes Cox Plate. He also said that if outbreaks occur in Brisbane around the time of the grand final, it may be possible to move to an alternative location such as the Adelaide Oval.
It is an absolute travesty that the AFL once again is abiding by its first rule, which is always finding a way to do over Western Australia by sending the grand final to Queensland. It's not even a football state. How on earth do you overlook Western Australia with all of the lack of restrictions, all of the capacity to fill into that stadium?
The AFL assures all Victorians not to worry, as this is a one-off and the grand final will be back at its home next year. Darby Travers, 6 News.
The Canberra Demons have ruled out playing in next year's merged AFL-VFL season, leaving the competition without a presence in the nation's capital. It came after reports that the club was blindsided after not being told that the 2021 season would not go ahead. This has left some concerned about the future of standalone clubs that do not currently align with the 18 AFL teams. If you want more news on this story, you can head to the description on this video, where you can watch Daniel Pizarro's full report on the merged season. Let's check in with tomorrow's forecast right around the nation. Brisbane light rain 23 degrees, Sydney 20, Canberra also 20, Melbourne 22, Adelaide 26, Perth 18, Darwin a sunny top of 34, Townsville cloudy 27, Wollongong 21, Ballarat 19, Bendigo 18 and in Hobart 19 degrees. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can start today with all the latest news on our social pages at 6NewsAU. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.